How dare he shut down the defense of one of the accused when something unlawful is happening? Then Baloyi says, no, we have it handy, and he's ready to read it. It's almost as if these two people are communicating outside the court. Guys, can you believe that Rata's response is that it was a mistake? Judge Rata, sometimes I feel like his mind doesn't work at all. If I did give the address, when they went to confirm the address, what is my address? So basically, Muzi Sibiya is not being represented because his representation has been shut down by the court. They are putting together a puzzle. They are putting together... Guys, how are you putting together a puzzle at this stage of the case? You said you have a watertight case. Where is the watertight case?
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Things felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull an 10. Like Daddy.
Hello and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Nogwazi Ndombela, also known as Kwazi Bear on all social media platforms. Do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you are a returning subby, welcome back, darling. Now guys, as you know, every week I bring you proceedings in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, so I'm here to do exactly that. And in all honesty, this week I didn't feel like recording this video because it is so repetitive. It is so repetitive. The state is saying they had a watertight case, and my chat is, if your case was so watertight, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be prolonging this process. We wouldn't be asking repetitive questions, and we wouldn't be grasping at straws. But I guess it is what it is. So without wasting too much of your time, let us get into this video. Before we get into this video, guys, please ensure that you like this video so that it does reach a greater audience, because that's how YouTube knows that this video is of importance, and they do actually put it out to other people so that more people are aware of what is happening in the Senzo Meyiwa case. And also do subscribe if you're not already subscribed. A lot of people do watch videos but they don't subscribe to the channel. Please do subscribe, and also please do super thanks if you can. If you want to know what super thanksing is, next to the like button down below there is a button that says thanks. That is just to show your appreciation to this channel. So let us get into this video. Now, on Monday, the 3rd of November, when cross-examination continued on Umuzi Sibiya, they continued on the issue of the pointing out. Now, when I say that the questions are so repetitive, they literally asked Umuzi Sibiya about why he was pointing down in the pictures, which is something that he explained numerous times last week to say he doesn't know what he was pointing down for, but he was just instructed to do so, and that is what he did. Now, one of the versions that Baloyi brought up is the fact that Umshololo said that there were TRT police officers that were present during this pointing out. Now, when Umshololo cross-examined Umuzi on the issue of the presence of police, she emphasized that it doesn't matter which police were there. Bottom line is that the police were present during the pointing out, and some of the police that were present are the police that were involved in his arrest. Therefore, the intimidation was a real thing at that point. Now, another issue that Muzi raised during his cross-examination is the issue that Hadebe kept writing that he had no injuries, just emphasizing that he doesn't understand how Hadebe would say there were no injuries when he still has marks proving the injuries that he had during that time. And another interesting aspect that Muzi touches on is the issue of the photos that were taken before and after his pointing out, where Muzi says that he was only asked to take off his clothes once. Now, guys, this is a very important aspect. I think I did point it out last week as well, because everything is so repetitive in this case, that Muzi Sibiya says he was only requested to take his clothes off once. Now, we need the metadata. We need the metadata for these photos, because Muzi says, I was only asked to take off my clothes once, which means that it could be that these people took a number of pictures of me, and then they're just saying this was taken in the afternoon and this was taken in the morning. He even made an example to say, when you act with generations and stuff, or the soapies that we watch on TV, they could record the whole episode in one day. It plays over in a month, which was a great example, because he's clearly saying that these pictures were taken once in the morning and that was it. And now they're using the numerous pictures over a period, saying that they were taken before and after, which is a very important point. We need the metadata for those photos. Now, Baloyi goes back to the issue of the EMPD officers that were present. And what is surprising to me is that they are saying, Ukhatebe noma Phakela are saying that it was just the two of them and no one else was present during the pointing out. During cross-examination of Jonathan, he admits that they were there. So who's lying? Now Baloyi puts the version of Unailana, who says that the EMPD officers were there. Now Muzi's version of events is that the EMPD officers were present when he moved from Valeria to Alberton. However, when they moved from Alberton to the pointing out, the EMPD were no longer there. Jonathan's version is that the EMPD were there, and Nailana also says that the EMPD were there. Muzi is adamant that the EMPD left him at Alberton, and when they went to the pointing out, it was the TRT officers that were present. And he even points out that I don't understand why these police do things and then they come back and then they deny them, because even Kininda was denying the presence of Ungamane and Ubongani, and then quickly in his diary, Yende is there. And Baloyi goes back to the issue of going to KZN, where he says that Kininda's version is that the reason why they went to KZN is because they needed to verify Muzi's address. Now, Muzi's response to this is, Kininda's lying. Kininda is lying because last he said in Tembisa, I gave a Mpumalanga address. Who confirmed that Mpumalanga address? Who went to Mpumalanga? Now he's saying KZN. So which address did I give kahle kahle in all of these cases? Because it's clearly like I'm giving out like all these wrong addresses according to Kinind. I wouldn't have given an address, yes, in Makaya, because in Makaya there isn't even a physical address. So how would I have given the address? And if I did give the address, when they went to confirm the address, what is my address? Now they go back to the issue of Ongoza, which is the school near Muzi's hometown, where Baloyi says that he had given the address of Ongoza. Muzi's response to this is, how could I give an address of a school because I don't stay at a school? And Baloyi basically says that that is the nearest landmark, and so on and so forth. Baloyi also says that the fact that they know that Ongoza is near his home proves that the interview with Umboto was conducted. Muzi's response to this is that no, this proves that whoever gave that information gave information that they are not fully aware of, because I don't stay Ongoza and they don't have my physical address. So whoever gave that information, Zungu, didn't have the right information. So before the proceedings ended on Monday, Baloyi went back to the issue of the Natis system and how Moses Biya had said that he was staying in KZN during the period after his unemployment in 2013 right through to 2015, of which Moses Biya does say that he still maintains that he was staying home during this period and he would occasionally come to Gauteng when needed to. Baloyi then points out that the gentleman that came to testify about the Natis system, certain versions were not put to him by Moses Biya, of which Umnesi objects to and says that there wasn't a reason for us to put those versions to this person because he was here to testify about his work, which is the Natis system. What good would it have been to put the version of the day of the incident when he has no knowledge about any information about the day of the incident? Now Baloyi goes on to the issue of Moses Biya's alibi and how he did not give his alibi prior to Ngumalo's cross-examination. Now Nesi objects to the saying that Moses Biya opted to remain silent. His defense is not his alibi. He just simply says he was not at the incident, and that is it. Now, what surprised me about this day is that when Mnisi raised this objection, the judge then mentioned a certain case. I think he said it was State versus Tibus or Tibu or something to that effect. And immediately after the judge mentions it, then Baloyi says, no, we have it handy and he's ready to read it. It's almost as if these two people are communicating outside the court and the judge already knows what Baloyi is going to bring, because there's no way that I can mention something and immediately you have it open and ready on the go. Now, the judge asks Baloyi to read the State versus Tibus case, and Admissibility basically says that Baloyi is not the source of knowledge in this court. We all know about that case. Why is he reading this to us? Then as Baloyi continues with his cross-examination, he does mention that Untanzi, accused number 2, did mention his alibi immediately when he was arrested. So why didn't Muzi do the same? He's not Untanzi. He's not in Tanzi. He opted not to give the alibi. Why is he questioned on issues of accused number 2? Then Ubaloyi does ask Umuzi where he was on the 26th of October in 2014, to which Muzi responds, "What I can say is that I was in Makaya in KZN. As to the specific location, I can't really tell where exactly I was in KZN during that time because that date is of no significance to me. It's not like it's my birthday or my mom's birthday or anything like that to be able to tell that, oh, because it was that day, that's where I was. It has no significance to me, so I have no idea where I was, who I was with, and what I was doing. However, I can confirm with certainty that when the news of the death of Senzo Meyiwa broke on the 27th, I was definitely at home, Emajaltin Asekaya, basically." Now, one good thing about the state continuously repeating evidence is that Muzi is able to pick up on certain information that he has forgotten. This I say because when the state was going through his bank statements yet again, Moses Biya noticed that there's a number that is mentioned on his bank statement, which is the number that he was using for MTN. Now, if you don't remember the information with regards to Moses Biya's cell phone numbers, he did admit that he had 2 cell phone numbers. The one that ends in 179, which he could remember, and then he does say that he had an MTN number, but he could not remember the contact number. Now, how this is relevant is that when they bring up his bank information, he sees the number, the MTN number that he was using, which ends in 9709. And he says, now that I'm seeing this number, actually, this is the MTN number that I was using during that period. So now we know both of Spia's contact numbers, which means that the number that was handwritten by Uchos to plant on Umuzi is no longer the number ya Umuzi, because now we know the MTN number. Before he had said, oh, that could have been my number, but I don't remember. But now we know with certainty that that number that was brought by host to say it was Muzi Spia's number definitely was not. Now, they decide to go through bank statements, which was a tedious exercise, to be quite honest, because Moses Villa clearly says, yes, these are my bank details. Yes, those are transactions on my account, but I don't remember who was transacting on these accounts. Now, one of his accounts, he says that, the net bank account, he says that he had a partner at the time, Umbali, who is the mother of his kids, and she basically had full access to that specific account. So Umbali was using Muzi Svia's account for her personal things, and Muzi would also put money or have money going into that account, but the cards were with Umbali. Now, all the transactions that were happening on that specific account, Moses Bia says he cannot account for because that account was exclusively used by Umbali. He never used that account at all. He even says that all the transactions, whether it's money going in or out, belong to Umbali. He just happened to be the account holder. Now, when he goes into the Capitec account, he says this card as well was with Umbali. However, when he was in Johannesburg, he would occasionally use the card. So his response to the transactions on that specific account is that, yes, I would use it when I was in Joburg, and Bali would use it most of the time. So I cannot tell who was using the card with each transaction that was happening, because it needs to be specific. If I see a transaction, maybe if I, like, for example, when I went to the driver's license department, if I was using the card and it picked up Ibrakban, I would be able to confirm that, oh yeah, that transaction was me. But now, guys, the interesting part about the Brakban issue is that Moses Bia paid cash for his learner's license. Isn't that sort of like an indication that he didn't have his card? Because why wouldn't he pay with his card if he had his card? This is just proof that Mbali had his cards. As they continue to go through the transaction, Moses Bia picks up on something very important. He says, it's so funny how we're going through all these transactions, and I can see that there are attempts where it's said that there's insufficient funds, but I'm not seeing any deposits, which was a good catch by Umozi, because Baloyi was basically going through the deductions on their account and not the deposits. So Nisi says that's actually a valid point. Where are the deposits in this particular bank account? Now, when Mnisi raises the point that Moses Biya is actually raising a very genuine point, the judge says he begs to differ. Begs to differ, Njani. When you request a bank statement from the bank, you expect to see all transactions, deposits, and withdrawals. Right now, we've been taking through withdrawals, and you beg to differ that it's concerning that you're only seeing withdrawals. Then he asks Baloyi, where are the deposits? Like, Judge Rata, sometimes I feel like his mind doesn't work at all. Now, another thing that was a concern with regards to these particular bank statements is that they were on a spreadsheet. Now, guys, a spreadsheet is editable. And the reason why I say it's editable is because of Muzi's point that he raised yet again. One thing about Moses Biya, he pays attention and he's very intelligent. He might not be educated, but he's very intelligent. He then says, and another thing that's confusing me about these transactions is that I'm seeing transactions that are happening at the shop 11A and 11B. And on some transactions, this shop 11A, 11B is reflected as Johannesburg. In some transactions, it's reflected as Vosloorus. So which one is it? And even points out that with the transactions, why are they reflecting as different transactions when it's the same shop? You can't say it's shop 11A, 11B, and one day it's in Johannesburg, one day it's in Vosloorus. How is that possible? And then Baloyi's response to that is, no, but you saw these transactions, you said that you were getting notifications, so why didn't you question the notifications back then? Moses' response to that is, well, on the notification, it doesn't tell you about the shops. It just tells you money out. So there is no way I could have seen that shop 11A is changing from Johannesburg to Vosloorus. On the 5th of November, we continued with the cross-examination with regards to these bank statements, for which Baloyi says, you said that you gave Umbali the card once, and with the card that Umbali was using, apparently there was a change in the card number, which means that Moses Biya must have replaced the card at some point during the time that Umbali was using the card. Now, Moses Biya's response to this is that, I gave Umbali the card once. If the card was replaced, it doesn't mean that I gave her the second time. And he made an example with a car. He says if a person gives you a car and he says, here, I'm giving you a car. If one day he decides to take it and go put petrol in the car, it doesn't mean that he's now giving you the car for the second time. No, that car still belongs to you. He gave it to you once. So that is exactly the case when it comes to the card. The fact that I had the card replaced doesn't mean I'm giving her for the second time. I just replaced the card and I gave it back to the person which was using the card. Now, they go back to the issue of the opening documents on the bank account where there is a contact number that is written in pen. This is where Muzi responds and says, I'm having a difficulty responding to anything that has to do with this particular document because every other document is typed out. But for some reason, where this number is concerned, the number that I don't know, it's written in pen. Why is that so? If this is an opening document from the bank, why is it not typed out like all the other documents from the bank? Baloyi could not give a response. Now, what pisses me off about Baloyi is his lies, because he then says that Mgomezulu confirmed this number. Now, guys, if you go back to the record where Mgomezulu was referring to this number, he was referring to this number in the context that Kos had given out this number. He did not confirm that this number belonged to Moses Biya. He called out the number and Kos agreed that that's the number that was reflecting on that particular document. Not that Mgomezulu was agreeing that that was Moses Biya's number. Now, Mnisi does stand up and say that the authenticity of this particular document is questionable because the date is not even filled out correctly. And if you remember, there was a time where the judge tried to interject and say, no, but the date is there. And when Mnisi asked him, then what is the date? And he says the 6th. And Mnisi was like, the 6th of what? And the judge could not give the date. So the date on that particular document, I think is written as 2014-06. And then there's nothing else on the date. So you can't confirm the date on that document. So why would the bank give you a document with an unfinished date? When they try to put the information of this particular document onto the record, it is clear that the document is blurry and no one can actually read it, which prompted the defense to actually say, because this document is unreadable, it needs to be removed from the record. It needs to be scratched off the record because no one can read it. Even the state itself is trying to read. Usibanda tried to read it to the court and he himself couldn't read some of the information. That is where Ubaloyi then put it on record that this particular document is expunged expunged from the record. I think it was page 18. And when Umnisi also stood up, he says, but also page 15 is not clear as well. Continue going through the evidence of the bank statement and literally going through every transaction, which I felt was irrelevant because Moses Biya had already indicated that none of the transactions on any of the bank statement can he confirm who used or who was using that particular card. Mnisi at some points does even stand up and ask, are we dealing with a money laundering case? Because at this point, it feels like a money laundering case where we're going through transactions galore when we're dealing with the murder case. What do these transactions have to do with the murder case? At some point, Baloyi even says Umbali was using the Nedbank card and the Capitec card on the same day. Moses Biya's response to this is, there's no crime in using two cards in one day. She had access to both those cards. She didn't steal the card. The card was in her possession. She had every right to use both of the cards. And what if the money that she needed was not enough in one card and she needed to withdraw from the other card? There is actually no crime in using both the cards. Baloyi then says he puts it to Muzi that he was the one using the card. Moses Biya's response is Wangbona or Mbono wako. When it comes to the issue of the bank records and the account opening details, Baloyi basically says that the date is neither here or there. Umnisi then responds and says, no, the issue of the dates is very material because we need to know, this is a contract between the bank and Moses Biya. We need to know the exact dates as to when these accounts were opened. Now, with one of the transactions that were read out, there was a bank deposit that was made, and Ubaloyi does ask Umuzi who made that deposit, and Moses Biya's response is that anyone could have deposited inside the bank. It doesn't need to be the account holder who deposits funds inside the branch, basically. There was an issue that Muzi took up with the state with regards to two transactions. So one was a cash deposit inside the branch, and then the other was a card replacement. Now with the card replacement, it doesn't specify which branch the card was replaced at, which was Muzi's clarifying question to say, if this card was replaced and it just says bank card replacement, it doesn't say the branch, I can't now confirm where the card was replaced. You're telling me that it was in Joburg, but how do I know? Because even if the card was replaced in Cape Town, chances are this transaction would reflect the same. So that is why we need an agent from Capitec to actually come and clarify certain issues. But you didn't bring the agent from Capitec to come testify on these bank records. And right now, when I'm asking questions about these bank records, you're unable to answer me, which means I'm unable to answer you because I need clarity. Baloyi then says, Moses Biya's duty is to answer questions. But Baloyi, how can Muzi answer questions when you're not clarifying them for him? On the 6th of November, we continued with cross-examination, dealing still with the transactions in the Capitec account. And at this point, guys, I was just tired of listening. I literally switched off. But I am going to touch on certain aspects of the cross-examination, which I feel were important. And one of them being the issue of purchases that were done at Spitz. Now, there are transactions of purchases that were made at Spitz, and basically Baloyi goes into one of the pictures where he says that in this particular picture, Moses Biya is wearing a kavela. Now, he asked Moses Biya at Spitz, can you purchase this brand of kavela? And Moses Biya does admit that yes, at Spitz you can definitely purchase a kavela, and he has numerous number of kavelas. And he says this was the date in which this transaction took place, and in the picture it is you're wearing a kavela. Moses Biya's response to this is that yes, I am wearing a kavela, but the kavela that I'm wearing in that particular picture was purchased in 2018, so it's irrelevant to the kavela that's there. And he even says that this kavela brand is not just one shoe that I have. Even now, before this court, I'm currently wearing a kavela. So what does that say about the purchases then? Now, they go into numerous transactions where it is reflected on the bank statement as prepaid top-ups, right? Now, with Capitec, you cannot really tell on the statement whether the prepaid was data or the prepaid was airtime. So Baloyi did try to actually find out from Umuzi what he was purchasing and all those things. And Muzi basically says, I'm not trying to do a finder with my life. I cannot be speculating as to what I purchased on the day. Bring a Capitec agent that will be able to tell us on this particular day, this was airtime. On this particular day, this was data, so that I can be able to respond. Because right now, it's just prepaid top up and I'm unable to respond as to what I was purchasing and why I was purchasing that number of prepaid top ups. Now, when I say that the state has nothing on the 5 accused, please believe me, because now it's getting really desperate. The state is getting really desperate when they're going into transactions of airtime that was purchased closer to the incident. Now, if you look at Muzi Sbiya's bank statement, for as far back as when they were requested, airtime purchases are not a new thing in his statement, but the state is now saying that on the 25th of October in 2014, you purchased 12 Rand airtime, and on the day of the incident, you purchased 30 Rand, where Admissibility then stops the state and says, no, the 30 Rand purchase of airtime is not something unfamiliar. Even previously, on the previous months, this person was purchasing 50 Rand, 30 Rand. So 30 Rand is not something new on the day of the incident. So Baloyi is basically trying to say he used 30 Rand airtime on the day of the incident because he was busy planning the hit. Baloyi. Now, one of the issues that Baloyi touches on when he completes the issue of the transactions is the fact that most of the transactions that were happening on Muzi's account were in Naledi Mall. For which Muzi responds and says, yes, because we used to stay by Naledi Mall. And he says, yeah, but most of those transactions were done there. And he says, yeah, and also Mbali resides near Naledi Mall. Then he goes into the evidence of Constable Zungu, who refers to a red t-shirt that Umuzi Sbiya was allegedly wearing on the day of the incident, and he goes into a photo. Now, first of all, we don't even know when that photo was taken. So Zungu mentioning a red t-shirt is of no relevance when we don't know when the red t-shirt picture was taken. Umuzi Sbiya's response to that is that I've got many red t-shirts. I've even worn one here in court. So the red t-shirt is of no relevance to the 26th of October because I didn't even know Constable Zungu during that period. Now, this is where things got interesting because Baloyi then says he wants to now cross-examine accused number 1 on based on accused number 2's confession. And the judge's question is that admissible? Right? This is where Nisi objects because the state then starts bringing in an application. One, he has not requested to bring an application. The judge has not approved Baloyi bringing in this application, but Baloyi is already submitting an application as to why he should be allowed to cross-examine accused number 1 based on accused number 2's confession. Nisi then objects in the midst of Baloyi bringing this application. He objects, and when he objects, the judge then says, no, Nisi, sit down. Nisi's response is, excuse me, I'm allowed to object at any point in the proceedings when something unlawful is happening. I am objecting unless the court is shutting me down. Judge Rata's response is, yes, I'm shutting you down. How dare he? How dare he shut down the defense of one of the accused when something unlawful is happening? So basically, Muzi Sbiya is not being represented because his representation has been shut down by the court. After the long application that Baloyi brought in, the judge then says to Nisi, do you want to respond? And I'm just like, is he okay? Is he okay up here? Nisi's response is, no, you shut me down. I'm not going to talk anymore because you shut me down. You made a ruling that you don't want me to talk or respond, so I'm not going to talk. Then the judge goes on to Admissibility and says, if you want to respond, I'm going to give you time. And so the rest of the defense basically says they will need time to submit their arguments to this particular application by the state, and we would continue on the next day. Now, on Friday the 7th, the defense came through with their arguments, and Nisi was ready to proceed. He did say that he does note that this is not about him. It is about Umuzisbia, so he definitely will be bringing an argument forward, and his argument was very strong and to the point. He basically points out that the state has been referring to Exhibit JJ, Exhibit HH, Exhibit GG as confessions all along, but now that they're bringing this particular application, they now are calling it executive statements. Now, I've had the privilege of people actually explaining the difference of both of these certain things. And guys, the state is trying to be sneaky. The state is trying to be sneaky because all along we've known these to be confessions. We've even had a trial within a trial to determine the admissibility of these confessions. A trial within a trial, it was basically ruled that these confessions are admissible because the judge believes that they were taken voluntarily and under no duress and all those things that need to be met in order to qualify for a confession. Now, guys, the most important thing that I need you guys to remember is the cross-examination of Ngomezulu on Magistrate Cronier. Now, when Magistrate Cronier came, Ngomezulu pressed really hard on the issue of, is this a confession or a statement? And the elements that needed to be met, or the requirements that needed to be met for a confession to a magistrate, were definitely not met. Ngomezulu pointed this out to Cronier, and Cronier actually admitted. But the state still went on and said these are confessions. Now, he quotes several cases in his argument, and he basically says a confession cannot be an executive statement, and he rests his case. Ramosipili also came through with his arguments, which I felt were very, very strong, even though I was struggling to listen. But he does point out that an executive statement is something that is done during the incident. So it is not possible for a person to do an executive statement 6 years later after the incident. That is not an executive statement. He also says that we need to now determine what we're dealing with here. Is it an admission? Is it an admission? Is it a confession? Is it an executive statement? But as far as he can tell, it is not an executive statement because one, an executive statement is not taken by the police. An executive statement is not taken by the police. And two, you cannot make an executive statement 6 years after the incident. It needs to be during the commission of the crime. He also quotes some cases as well to back up his arguments, and then it was time for Ungumalo. Now, guys, one thing about Ungumalo doesn't talk much, but when he does talk, he drops bombs because he does actually put in his argument and says that it's not fair that this is now changing from a confession to an executive statement. This should not be allowed. It's not procedure. He even goes as far as saying, in my entire career being an attorney in the High Court, in KZN, in Eastern Cape, this procedure I have never seen in my life, ever. Like what's happening in Ratso's court is a first for all, right? And then he does then put his arguments, he quotes a few cases as well, but then he says, there's something that I'd like to bring to the attention of the court that I noticed the court said during the application of the 174. And I'm like, he's about to drop a bomb. Then he says, the court said that none of the defense counsels cross-examined Constable Zungu in connection to the Snako issue and the Kwabini throwing the gun issue. Like nobody cross-examined Uzungu on that. And he says, I've had a moment to go back to the record, and that is not true. One, Advocate Mnisi on September in 2023, this is what he said. So it was cross-examined. And I myself, because I was not happy with the response that Constable Zungu gave to Mnisi, also cross-examined on the same issue. Guys, can you believe that Ratsa's response is that it was a mistake? Mistake in Johnny. You based your whole Section 174 ruling on that particular mistake. Umalo then basically says, no, but I need to point out that Constable Zungu's evidence is evidence of a single witness, and there's no corroboration. But it seems as though the court is taking that into consideration. And then the judge is like, who said that? And woman is like, based on the ruling of the 174 application, you mentioned Zungu's evidence, and basically you corroborating certain things with Zungu's evidence, which cannot be. And also the fact that you're saying that it was a mistake now, Like how? Which means that the whole application year 174, the ruling on it was a mistake because you ruled based on information that was a mistake. Like, oh my God. Oh my days. Mshololo decided to address or argue from the bar. She did not prepare any documents, but her argument was spot on. Mshololo says, when the defense is putting together their case, they are defending what is brought by the state. What has been brought by the state is a confession. That's what we've been defending in the trial within a trial. That's what we defended. Now, if they want to change and call it an executive statement, we need to now figure out what exactly are we defending, because this is unfair. This is unfair. This is an unfair trial. If this is allowed, this will be an unfair trial, because what are we defending? Statements, or are we defending confessions, or are we defending admissions? We don't know what we're defending at this point, and the state should not be allowed to fish. And Mshololo, I couldn't have said it better. The state is fishing. The state is fishing. So guys, the response by the state is that they are putting together a puzzle. They are putting together... Guys, how are you putting together a puzzle at this stage of the case? You said you have a watertight case. Where is the watertight case if you're still putting together puzzles at this point? Please make me understand. Please make it make sense. You cannot be putting together puzzles at this stage of your case. Your case is supposed to be watertight. Watertight where? Basically, those were the arguments that were heard on Friday, and Judge Rata basically needs to make a ruling on those arguments. But guys, Judge Rata, I don't trust that man. I don't trust that man at all. But the defense definitely had a strong case to argue. I feel that the confessions of accused number 2 should not be used to cross-examine accused number 1. Yeah, because the state is basically trying to implicate the rest of the accused using a confession now, which is something that we know that can't be used. Now they want to change it from a confession to executive statement so that it suits their narrative that they're trying to push now. No, it can't work like that, guys. Anyway, those are the proceedings for the week. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.